Recording has started, and yeah, I need to now share this screen. So can you see this screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So good morning, everyone. So this is our class 5 of Macroeconomics I. In the last class, we started our discussion on national income accounting, where we discussed about the circular flow of income, and then we also discussed about the two-sector economy without investment, without savings and investment, and then we relax the assumptions of the two-sector economy and consider that the household sector is saving and the business sector is borrowing for investment. Okay. So then we also spoke about this savings as leakage from the circular flow of income and investment via loans by the business sector as injection to the circular flow of income. So this exerts contractionary pressure, downward pressure, and this exerts expansionary pressure or upward pressure on the circular flow of income. So now as we have seen that, as I've said, that whatever household sector is saving is being channelized by the financial market to the business sector in the form of loans for investment expenditure. So now, as we can see, what is the direct implication of this? The direct implication of this is this: savings in a two-sector economy, savings is always equal to investment. Okay, for two-sector economy. Now, the classical and the Keynesian theorists differ on how this equalization happens. So, according to the classical theorists, through interest rate mechanism, so according to them, both savings and investment are functions of interest. So, through interest rate mechanism, any imbalance between savings and investment is being taken care of. So, if there are too high savings or too high investment demand, then via this interest mechanism, that is through movement in the interest rate either upward or downward, savings is always brought equal to investment and vice versa. Whereas Keynesian theories differ. So according to them, in a two-sector economy, actual investment is always equal to actual savings. But planned investment may be greater than or may be lesser than or may be equal to planned savings. So according to Keynesian theorists, when planned investment is equal to planned savings, only then the aggregate output is equal to full employment output. Now the question is this: why do this thing happen? So according to Keynes, savings and investment are done by two different sets of people. So savings is done by whom? Households. And investment is done by whom? Business firms. Okay. Now, according to the Keynesians, savings is a function of income, unlike the classicists. Whereas investment is a function of rate of interest. So saving, it's a increasing function. So savings is an increasing function of income, whereas interest is a decreasing function of rate of interest. Now, so they are two different groups of people who save and invest, and the purpose is also different. So while for savings, household sector save for what? To meet any future consumption requirements or to smoothen consumption pattern, and also for post-retirement uses. Whereas investment by business firms is entirely for profit or rate of return. Okay. So profit or rate of return. Fine. Now, as the groups of people are different who save and invest, and as the functions are also different in nature, because savings is a function of income, whereas income is a function of rate of interest. And also as the purpose of savings and investment are different, so planned savings is not always equal to planned investment. So that means aggregate demand. So investment forms part of what? Investment forms part of aggregate demand. Okay. So if planned savings is not equal to planned investment, then aggregate demand can be either less than aggregate output, or it can be greater than aggregate output, or it can be equal to aggregate output. Only when aggregate demand is equal to aggregate only when planned investment is equal to planned savings, then only aggregate demand is equal to aggregate output, which is nothing but the full employment output. Okay. So aggregate demand. So Y here stands for nothing but your full employment output. Okay. Now, following this, argument of savings being equal to investment. So there is one identity that is being mentioned in macroeconomics, which is savings investment identity. That means at any point of time in the economy, that means after a given year, at the end of the year or the end of the quarter, this is being assumed that savings, which is nothing but your actual savings, is always equal to actual investment. So actual savings is always equal to actual investment. So this is what is known as your savings investment identity. So how do we reach this savings investment identity? So remember, as I've already mentioned, that you can measure GDP by what? You can measure GDP by three methods. Value added method, okay, income method, expenditure method. Okay, value added method, income method, and expenditure method. Now, let's say the total value add, let's say the total GDP by any of these methods is equal to Y. Now, the value that has been generated. So, if I use the value added method concept, the value that has been generated is basically being used by what? Is basically being used by the household sector in consumption. Whatever goods and services have been produced in the two-sector economy is used. So the value of all the goods and services produced in the economy is equal to the value of consumption of goods and services by the household sector, and value of investment made by the business firms sector. So this is what we get using the value added method. Similarly, you can also say that we can get the same thing by the expenditure method. Now, as I said, that whatever value added, whatever value has been generated in the economy in the form of GDP is being paid in its entirety to the factors of production in terms of factor income. So factor income is also equal to Y. So as a household in the two-sector economy, what you can do? So the households who are receiving the factor income, they can do two things. They can consume part of the factor income and they can save rest of the factor income. Now the GDP which you get by the value-added method is equal to the GDP which you get by the income method. Both are same. So we can equate both equation 1 and 2. That means C plus I is equal to C plus S. Now the consumption that is achieved either by the value-added method or by the income method is same on both the sides. So we cancel each other out. Then what are we left with? We are left with I, which is investment, equal to S, which is equal to savings. So this establishes the saving investment identity in a two-sector economy where the household sector is saving and the business sector is making investment. Now, there is an addendum. What is this addendum? Addendum is this: whatever goods and services are being produced by the business sector, some are left unconsumed, some are left unsold. So when they're left unsold, what do the business sector do? So they store it or keep it in the godown. So whatever unsold goods is being kept back by the business firms in the godown or in the warehouse is known as inventories. That means you are maintaining a stock of the unsold goods and services. So these inventories also make a part of investment. Okay, so they are part of this I by the business sector. So they are part of this investment by the business sector. But this inventories, let me tell you, this is not a planned investment. This is unplanned or this is unforeseen. That means the business sector could not foresee that they can have a situation where some of their goods and services remain unsold. So this investment is nothing but known as this unplanned investment. So this fluctuation in this level of inventories or this fluctuation in the level of unplanned investment is what leads to the investment being either equal to or less than or greater than the savings being generated in the economy. So the argument that has been put forth by the Keynesian economists has to do with this inventory investment, which is as a result of the unsold goods and services produced by the business firms. And movement upward or downward movement in these inventories actually leads to fluctuation in the planned investment vis-a-vis planned savings. Okay. Now, next, we have already spoken about a two-sector economy where we have got household and business firms. Now we'll include one more sector in the economy. That means now we'll consider a three-sector model. So this three-sector model is still now a closed economy. That is, there are no exports and imports. So now we'll have three sectors. What are the sectors? Household sector, business firms as usual, and the third one is the government sector. So Tridip Pal, what does the household sector do in the economy?
They supply factors of production to the business firms.
Okay. So household sector supply factors of production to the business firms. In exchange, they receive factor incomes. which they partly consume and partly save. So they partly consume in the production of goods and services, and they partly save up the factory incomes. Business firms use the factors supplied by the household sector to produce goods and services, pay back the household sector with the factory incomes, and borrow from the household sector via the financial market to make investment for expanding the production capacity. Now, this government sector, they actually also receive factors of production from the household sector for the services that are being provided through public sector, that is hospitals, schools, administration, law and order, defense, etc., etc. And they also purchase goods and services from the business firms. Now, these are the two activities of the government sector in the economy. The other two activities are that they raise taxes from both the households and the business firms. They also make certain payments in the form of subsidies, then old age pension, social security payments to the household sector, subsidies and some investment incentives to the business firms, and they also borrow money if their spending is greater than their tax collection or revenue collection from the financial market, which is basically being borrowing from the household sector, who are generating the savings in a three-sector model. Okay. So now, how do we get the three-sector model? Okay. So first, so Tridit, is it raining heavily in Guwahati?
No.
So is it sunny or cloudy?
Cloudy.
And how is the COVID situation in Guwahati?
Sir, like many cases are going up like nowadays.
So now we include the government sector. Okay, so first of all, household sector is providing all factors of production, that is land, just okay. So household sector is what? Providing land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship. Okay. Farms, farms are providing what? Factory income, rent, wages, interest, profits. Now the household sector is doing what? Household sector is now going for consumption purchase. And the business sector does what? Business sector provides the, so there is flow of goods and services. Okay. Now, the household sector makes savings and deposits it in the financial market. Financial market advances this as loans. Part of the savings financial market is advancing as loans, as investment expenditure to the business firms. Now, what the government does? Now, let us see what the government is doing. So, household sector is now again providing factors of production for factors of production are being provided by the household sector, okay, to the government sector. So government sector pays it back. So they pay it back in the form of wages and compensation. Okay. Again, government sector is also purchasing goods and services, purchase. Okay, fine. Now the business firms is doing what? Business firms is providing goods and services. Now the government sector collects taxes from both the household sector and business firms. Okay. And at the same point of time, government also makes social security payments to the household sector and subsidies to the business sector. So you have now got a new concept, which is the concept of net tax payments. Okay. So which is the concept of net tax payments. So what is the net tax payments? Net tax payments is the taxes minus transfer payments. And what are the transfer payments? Transfer payments are nothing but social security payments, okay, subsidies, investment incentives, etc., etc. So transfer payments, understand, are those payments being made in exchange for which you don't get any goods and services in return. I'll just give you an example. So you're making a donation. Okay, you're making a donation. Let's say Trideep makes a donation of 1 lakh rupees for installing laptop, laptop, projector, and other computer peripherals in the classroom for better IT-based teaching. Okay, but 3D does this only when he becomes an alumnus of Don Bosco University. So 3D has passed out. 3D is now doing some job, and 3D makes payment out of his income, a donation to install all those devices. But does 3D get any goods and services in return? Nothing. Zero. So these type of payments are known as transfer payments. So transfer payments are those payments in exchange of which you don't get any goods and services in return. Okay. So The government sector collects taxes from both household and business sector at the same point of time. The government also gives subsidies and investment incentives to the business firms, as well as it gives social security payments to the household sector. So now, what is happening? So, just a minute. So I have to do a little bit. So now, government so this is nothing but net tax payments. So this comes as net tax payments to the government sector from the household sector. So similarly from the business sector also. Similarly from the business sector also, government receives net tax payments. So taxes over and above the transfer payments made by the government is counted as net tax payments. So net tax payments are made by both the household sector and the government and the business firm sector to the government. Now, as I said, when government is making expenditure for goods and services, it may happen that the expenditure on goods and services, as well as wages and compensation, may be much larger than the net tax payments which it receives from the household sector as well as business firm sector. So when such thing happens, what will happen? Government will now need to finance its excess spending over and above its net tax collections through borrowing from the market. So now government borrows from the government is now borrowing from the market. Okay, so this is nothing but borrow. So if we now see this entire circuit diagram, it's a little bit clumsy. So first of all, household sector provides factor production to the business firms. Business firms provides factor income to the household sector. Household sector then makes consumption purchase. Business firm then provides goods and services to the household sector. Part of the factor income is being saved by the household sector to the financial markets, which is channelized as investment to the business firms. Enters the government sector. So government sector is making so household sector is providing factors of production to the government sector. Government sector makes payments, factor payments in terms of wages and compensation to the household sector. Similarly, government also makes goods and services purchased from the business firms. So business firms provides goods and services to the government sector. Then government receives net tax payments, that is taxes over and above the transfer payments from the household sector as well as from the business firms. If the expenditure of government is over and above its net tax collections, then it borrows from the financial market, which is nothing but channelization of the savings being generated by the household sector. So this is your circular flow of income diagram for a three-sector economy. Okay. So for a three-sector economy, this is circular flow of income diagram. Okay. So now, next we move again to prove the savings investment identity for three-sector economy. Okay. So whatever value is being generated in a three-sector economy will be basically generated for three sectors, that is for consumption of goods and services by the household sector, investment by the business firms, and government purchase of goods and services, which is termed as G. So G is nothing but government purchase of goods and services. C is nothing but consumption purchase of goods and services by the household sector, and investment is nothing but investment purchase of goods and services by the business firms. So this we get by what? This we get by value added method. Or also you can say expenditure method. Now via income method, what we get? Household sector is receiving the income. So what will the household sector do? Part of the income they will be using for consumption purchase. Part of the income they will be savings with the financial market, and part of the income now they will be paying as net tax payments to the government sector. So T stands for what? Net tax payments. So this is your equation 4. This is your equation 5. Okay. So by income method, we get three components of goods and services that are being produced in the Indian economy: consumption by the household sector, investment by the business firm sector, and government consumption of goods and services by the government sector. By the income method, we get what? Three components for which income is for which income is being allocated: consumption, savings, net tax payments. So we know that whatever GDP we calculate by the value-added method will be equal to the GDP by the income method. So for equating 4 and 5, what we get? C plus I plus G is equal to C plus S plus T. Now, just like the earlier situation, consumption obtained by the value-added method is equal to the consumption obtained by the income method. So they cancel each other out. So we are left with what? We are left with I plus G equal to S plus T. So what does this mean? So this is, now I'll term this as 6A. So this means expenditure on investment by the business firms and expenditure on goods and services by the government sector is equal to the savings generated by the household sector and net tax payments made by the household sector to the government. So if we rearrange these terms, what we see, we will now shift T from left side to right side. So we can now write this as G minus T. Again, we will shift investment from the right side to the left side. So we can now write this as S minus I. So what does G minus T means? G minus T means excess of government expenditure over net tax collections. Okay. And what does this mean? This means excess of savings over investment. So as I've already said that whatever, if government expenditure is over and above its net tax collections, then it needs to what? It needs to borrow from the market. And from where will it get the funds for borrowing? It will get the funds for borrowing from the household sector. So if the savings is greater than the investment being made in the economy, so if there is excess of savings over investment, then that excess of savings over investment is used to finance the excess of government expenditure over net tax collections in the form of borrowing by the government from the financial market. Okay, so this is your equation 6b. So this again establishes the saving investment identity, which now includes the government sector in a three-sector economy. So if there is excess of government expenditure over net tax collections, that will be financed by excess of savings over investment. So that means excess government expenditure excess government expenditure grabs, I will say, grabs a part of savings away from business firms in terms of lower investment, Okay. So excess government expenditure grabs a part of savings away from business firms in terms of lower investment expenditure. So this phenomenon, when there is excess of government expenditure such that it is financed by borrowing, by excess of savings over investment, which happens because investment is lower than savings, then this phenomenon, according to the Keynesian economics, which we will study later, is known as crowding out effect. Crowding out effect is nothing but weaning away or grabbing away of a part of the savings by the government sector in terms of excess of expenditure over net tax collections, which leads to lower investment expenditure by business firms. Okay, so this is how we establish the savings investment identity in a three-sector economy. Now, we will now speak about what? So we will now speak about four-sector economy. Okay. So we will now speak about four-sector economy. So now this is an open economy. That means there are exports as well as imports. So what are the four sectors? So we already have the three sectors. So what is the fourth sector? So fourth sector is nothing but your external sector. That means external sector is what? External sector is rest of the world. So we export our goods and services to the rest of the world, and we import goods and services from the rest of the world. Okay, fine. So now we will have a circular flow of income diagram for a four-sector economy. So now I will have, so now I'm substituting households by short form of households as HHS. Okay. Then I will have financial market. So now I'll substitute this as FIs, financial institutions. So this is a short form. Then I have got business firms. So I'll just write firms. Next, I have got government. And lastly, I have got a new sector, which is my foreign sector. Okay, or foreign countries. So first, what is going to happen? So there will be what? Land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship, and then firms will do what? You make factor payments, rent, wages, interest, profits. Fine. Now household sector saves part of the factor income as savings, which is channelized as part of that savings is channelized as investment, okay, to the firms. Apart from that, household sector makes net tax payments, okay. Then it also makes consumption purchase, okay. Then it receives goods and services. In the meantime, household sector net tax payments. Let me just so the household sector provides factors of production to the government sector. Government sector does what? Sends wages and compensations. That is nothing but the factor payments. Acha, government also receives what? Net tax payments from the business firms. Then government also makes purchase of goods and services, and then it receives goods and services from the business firms. Okay, done. Now let us come to the bottom part of the diagram. So here, what is happening? Here, now this national, so let's say there are Indians who are working in abroad. Okay, so there are a group of Indians who are working abroad. So they do what? They export factors of production. Okay, so they export factors of production. Fine. Now, what is happening? Now the foreign sector, so they're exporting factors of production of the foreign sector. Now the foreign sector is making what? Foreign sector is now making payments in the form of foreign remittances. So this is nothing but payments for the factors of production exported. Okay. Again, foreign sector is making payments to the business firms for export payments. So business firms are exporting to the foreign sector and foreign sector is making export payments to the business firm. In a similar way, business firm receives imports from the foreign sector and then it makes import payments. So foreign sector receives import payments, so import receipts, okay, from the business firm sector. So foreign sector exports from the business firms, receives and makes export payments to the business firms. Business firms import from the foreign sector and foreign sector gets import receipts from the business firms. Households sector export factors of production to the foreign sector for production of goods and services abroad, and in exchange foreign sector makes foreign payments, that is foreign remittances in the form of wages and compensation to the household sector. So let us now expand to do a bit of correction. Okay, so this is how it stands. So this is now we get the circular flow of income diagram for a four sector economy. Now again, we next turn after doing this, what we do, we now look for a savings investment identity for what? For four sector economy. Okay, so now income GDP by value added method. What will be the components? Now there will be four components. What are those four components? Consumption by the household sector, investment by the business firm sector, government purchase of goods and services by the government sector. Now next what we have? Next we have what? So next we have exports, which is being made by the, which is being made to the foreign sector. Now from exports we deduct something. What we deduct? We deduct these imports. Okay, so we will be deducting these imports. So we will be considering this as the net exports. Okay, so this is nothing but your net exports. So M stands for imports, X stands for exports. So X minus M stands for net exports. So whatever GDP is being produced by value added method is being used up by these four sectors: consumption by the household sector, investment by the business firm sector, government purchase of goods and services by the government sector, and net exports by the foreign sector. Now by the income method, what do we get? So income, what the household sector will do, part of the income they will be consuming, part of the income they will be savings, and the rest they will be making net tax payments. So this is equation 7 and this is equation 8. So so since both are the same quantities, that is the GDP, so we can equate 7 and 8, and what we get, C plus I plus G plus X minus M equal to C plus S plus T. Now consumption by the value-added method is same as the consumption by the income method, so they cancel each other out. So what do we get? I plus G plus X minus M equal to S plus T. Okay, so we can make rearrangements. So what are the rearrangements we can make? So we can write, so we shift T to the right side, so we can write this as G minus T plus X minus M, that is net exports remains as usual. Then we can shift I from the right side to the left side, and where we can write S minus I. So this we know already as what? This we know, net exports. This is what? This is your excess government expenditure, which is nothing but, we term this excess government expenditure over net tax payments as budget deficit. Okay, and this is what? This is excess savings over investment. Okay, excess savings over investment. Now, what does this equation mean? So this is equation 9. So this is the savings investment identity in case of core sector economy. So what does this savings investment identity tell us? This savings investment identity tell us that budget deficit as well as net exports by the foreign sector or foreign countries is financed by the excess savings over investment generated by the household sector. So excess of savings over investment generated by the household sector is used to finance the budget deficit as well as payment for net exports by the foreign countries. Okay, so I have to make a small change in the diagram, so which I did not make. So here I missed out one thing, students. So here I missed out the borrowing by the government sector from the financial markets. Okay. So government sector to finance its excess expenditure over tax payments does what? It borrows from the financial market. So this gives me the, so now coming back to equation 9, we can see that the savings investment identity for a core sector economy denotes what? It denotes that excess of government expenditure, which is nothing but budget deficit, and net payment for net exports by the foreign countries is being financed by excess of savings over investment generated by the household sector. Okay, so we stop here today. We had a quite engaging class, quite packed class today. Okay, so I'll send you the video recording, and that's it. Any question, anyone? Yes, Mariam, now it turns dark. Your room has turned dark. What has happened? You are doing something that Jesus is not happy with. Yeah, anyone else? Any question? What is happening? Number of students are reducing today. I can see Mariam, Evelyn, Cindy, Ibanda, Chari, Sushana has gone off, it seems. So I have got Shafrang today. Tridit. Sushana is again back. Tridit. Bhuite. Thoksham. Suraj. Okay. So any questions? Suraj? Any question?
Sir, like, I have one question.
What question? Tell me.
Like, when the state government like borrow from the financial institutions, can you repeat it?
See, Suraj, let me tell very clearly here. Right now, we are considering the government at the. We are not considering separate governments. That is, we are not considering local governments or state government or central government. We are covering. We are considering the government in as a whole. Okay. So the things which are saying, these things we will be discussing in public finance, which we will be studying in third year. That is either in 5th or 6th semester. So right now, for the purpose of a discussion in macroeconomics, we will be considering the government as a whole. Okay. So whatever borrowing is being made is being, we don't consider which government is making the borrowing. We consider the government, whether it is local, state or central, is making the borrowing. Anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. So we stop here today. Thank you everyone and have a good day.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.